Week 3 in fantasy football is underway, and a full schedule of games are ahead. Through just 2 weeks of action, we have a lot of surprising results to contemplate, including whether Trevor Siemian is for real and whether it's too early to give up on LeGarrette Blount. Those answers and the latest headlines, injury news, free agency questions, and much more as OFN Fantasy Football on PSN starts now. All right, it's Friday, and we have actually two more. I was going to say I was hoping this was the last Friday in September, but it's not. It's the 22nd of September 2017. It's actually I believe it's the first day of fall. Is it the first day of fall, Dan?
I don't know, but it sounds about right. I'm sure if it's not exactly today, we're in the range.
Okay. No, you're not a weatherman. Jamal, is it the first day of fall?
That's what I'm hearing. I have sources telling me that that's the case.
All right. Well, leave it to Jamal. He's all tied in with the sources. He's got the weather women as well, even though he's married. Nice. So don't and a lot of kids from what we heard a few weeks ago when he took his family vacation. So
exactly.
All right. So anyway, we've got a lot to talk about here as always. Jamal, of course, is the chief fantasy analyst at Ourlads.com, and you can check out his work as co-host of the Bill Roden On Sports podcast on iTunes. And Dan Weinrich, he's just a fantasy guy. No, actually, he's a sports producer and fantasy expert. And Dan is in the U.S. now, right, Dan?
I am. I'm local.
No more trips?
Maybe down the road.
And what are those trips for, by the way? Are those personal or business?
A couple of weeks ago, I was on a little family excursion. But I will tend to travel on business too.
Okay.
Unpredictable.
So that's that was a family vacation in style. That's what that was? Okay.
Yeah.
So you took a plane, Jamal drove the old Chevy Chase way.
Yeah. I'm road tripping it.
All right. I saw a commercial. I keep forgetting. I'm glad I remembered. I got to write this down. Have you seen that commercial with Keith Sims in his RV?
No.
Yeah, I was. Now you probably wouldn't even. You might not even have recognized him because you didn't say he was Keith Sims. But it was a black family and they were in their RV. And as soon as it was black family, I saw it in an RV and an RV commercial. I knew who it was because I know Keith. And Keith has been trying to push the RV scene because you would know, Jamal. I mean, I had these conversations with Jamal. Black families and RVs, that just doesn't. That's weird. I mean, really?
Weird for me.
Yeah.
I've never been in an RV, I don't think.
There you go. So not surprising that they would choose Keith, especially because of the fact that, Keith's got, name, reputation, very good professional football player at the Miami Dolphins for many years. So yeah, I gotta contact Keith. That's just a reminder of, I don't know why I remember that commercial. I don't even remember where I saw that commercial. I guess it was on a football game somewhere. Okay. So let's talk fantasy football. And it's week 3. It's already underway after yesterday's crazy game. And so hopefully everybody out there, if you had Sammy Watkins, you started him. Right, Dan?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, unlike you. So
right.
No starting for – and that's, I don't know. I think it's at this point, though, if you were a Ram – if you were somebody that had Sammy Watkins, I don't think you could have started him. I think it's one of those situations, Dan, where you had to say, well, all right, he came in trade late, learning the system. I got to wait until it starts happening. And now that it's happening, you're going to start him next week, right?
Yeah, like with everything, it's always situational, and it depends what else you have. And in this instance, I had it's a 3 wide receiver league, and I have DeAndre Hopkins, Jordy Nelson, and Des Bryant are my guys who I started. So, I would have done that 10 times out of 10. Sometimes you make a decision that you can kick yourself over, but in this case, I don't think anybody would have started Watkins over one of those guys. So right now, I know moving forward that maybe he will slot ahead of one of those guys, or maybe I need to try to make a trade.
I advise that you still kick yourself though. That's my opinion.
All right.
That's a big game. I actually had Gurley in the league, and obviously started him. I've been high on Gurley since preseason. I thought he'd be like a top 5 back, and I'm happy to say that that's looking like a good prediction so far.
Yeah, I think see Mike Martz. He should probably keep his comments to himself. Sean McVay knows what he's doing. All right, the
Yeah, it looks
Rams.
like it.
Yeah, the Rams are going to be just fine, and they're going to be a very fun team to keep an eye on for years to come. I mean, this is why. I mean, Jamal, you weren't with us last year, but when I and you weren't even with us a couple of days ago because I know you weren't feeling well. And I rescheduled the Jet Show because I wasn't feeling well, and we were talking about. You know what Dan sounds like? Did you ever watch? What was that? What was that Mel Gibson movie? The one with the aliens in it. Like
Dan must know this. He's a movie guy.
Yeah.
Remember that Mel Gibson movie, the one with the aliens weren't in it, but it was about it was Joaquin Phoenix was in it.
Oh yeah, Signs.
Signs. You remember they were listening to that device? They were listening to the baby thing, and they were hearing the aliens. That's what you sound like. I don't know what that is, but you sound like aliens communicating with each other in signs.
Is this the first day of fall or Kick Dan Day?
No, but it's true. I don't know what you're doing with the phone, unless it's Jamal, but I think it's your phone, Dan, because I know you had problems with the phone last week.
You're not hearing me well?
No, that I don't know what that was, but it was just this noise coming through the phone. That's why
it might have been mine. Dan, you sound a little fake, Dan. I'll say that.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's that?
Get off that.
All right.
Well,
on to week 3.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. What was I talking about? Oh, McVay. And I was saying, Jamal, Sean McVay, because he was one of the guys that I wanted Todd Bowles fired for last year, and McVay was on the list. You know, Shanahan, McVay, and this guy is you got to give this guy a lot of credit. And what about Goff though? You know, Goff, that's where March was commenting on. We know how talented Gurley can be if he's got the pieces around him and he's healthy. But what about Goff? I mean, is Goff a guy that you definitely is a quality backup guy in your roster, right?
Yeah, I've picked him up in a couple leagues just as insurance. I think he's for real. He's especially under McVay. He has the weapons. He's finally started to use Sammy Watkins, but he has Gurley out the backfield, was getting Cooper Kupp involved. Kupp didn't do much again for the second week in a row, but Goff has weapons out there. He looks good. He looks the part. Strong arm, can move a little bit. I think he's a guy, one of those guys you take a chance on if he's still available. He's probably coming off boards now.
Would you at all think about starting someone like Goff, Dan?
If you're starting Jared Goff, you must be in trouble.
Really?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not starting him yet, and I'm not really as high on him as Jamal. I mean, there's still a ton of guys I would start before him.
Well, let me then pose this question to you.
Who Brian Hoyer?
No,
not Brian Hoyer.
No, all right. Well, I'm going to throw out then a couple of names who automatically I would expect you to laugh, like you just did. But should you be laughing right now about deciding whether to start Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, or Jared Goff?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it obviously depends on the matchup. But going into this week, I definitely would have started either of them.
Well, sure.
Jared
I
Goff.
mean, but you would think about it now a little bit more if you get one more bad week out of Wilson and Newton, wouldn't you?
I'm not convinced yet about the Rams. I mean, I would probably feel more comfortable putting my trust in Trevor Siemian or Carson Palmer's available.
Oh God, no, not Carson Palmer.
I mean, he's playing the Cowboys, who looked like one of the most horrendous pass defenses of all time last week. So he should have a good game.
They're not that bad though. I think they're ranked in the top. They're like a top 15 defense.
I'm being cautious with the hype.
I hear you.
Okay. Well, look,
it's not a Goff believer yet.
Not yet. Apparently a Trevor Siemian one. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I look, fantasy wise is a completely different story though. And that's what the show is about. If we were on a regular show, I would say, don't even make me laugh about Trevor Siemian. But we are in a fantasy show, and you can put up big numbers if you've got a good running game and the offensive line's protecting you, and you got good receivers. and you take advantage. But still, as a starter, I would probably. I got to tell you right now, if I had a decision between Trevor Siemian and Jared Goff, it would be tough for me. I would have to really think about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that would be tough for me too. I'll give Simeon his credit. I thought he was complete trash coming into the season. You know, I was making fun of him, and now two very good games in a row. I got to give him his props. But I put him in that same category as Goff. I think probably Goff. He just looks better to me. He just looks the part more than Simeon. But in terms of numbers, Simeon has put up those numbers. Simeon definitely has better proven weapons around him. Sanders and Thomas. If they had like a legitimate quarterback, I mean, those are two big time wide receivers. C.J. Anderson is producing. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I agree with Dan to a certain extent. You don't start. It's not like you're going Goff as a top 7, 8, or Simeon. Like these are guys. If you have an issue at the quarterback position, then you think about them. But I probably lean. For some reason, I'm leaning Goff slightly over Simeon.
Okay, so we split it, and I would be the one that would go. I have to think about it. So yeah, that's where we stand on that, and that just shows you. And look, that's why I said, look, this is fantasy, not a regular NFL show. Regular NFL show, and we're taking Jared Goff 10 out of 10. Not necessarily for this week, but for for the year, or for the next few years. I mean, Goff's just going to be 10 times better than Trevor Siemian. Anybody who thinks that's a debate, then they need their head examined. But this is fantasy football. And look, remember last year? Didn't Siemian get off to that great game against the Bengals last year, Dan? He had that first start on the road or something like that. And he threw for 350 yards and did all this, and everybody was going, "Oh, wait a second, Trevor Siemian!" And then that was his best game of the year. So I still think it's a little too early. I don't think he had a great game week 1 anyway. Statistically, what did he throw for 210 with 2 touchdowns? Okay. But last week, the 4 touchdowns made it appear that he's off to a really good start, only because of the fact that he's won 2 games. But you put him in the same category either way, though, Dan, as somebody that you wouldn't necessarily start. You still need more time to look at him.
Well, yeah, in one league I had the combo. I drafted of Russell Wilson and Tyrod Taylor, and I dropped Tyrod Taylor and picked up Simeon.
Oh yeah, that's better.
But I am going to go, even though Simeon has more than doubled Russell Wilson's fantasy points in the first 2 weeks. I'm still going to go with Russell one more week.
Yeah.
Simeon's been at home for the first 2 games. Now he's at Buffalo. They played tough against the Panthers last week, so I wouldn't feel great about starting him this week. But I'm grabbing him,
Yeah. No, yeah, you got to have a little bit more than just a couple of weeks. So, but at some point, yeah, you'll some point when it gets to 3 games and even maybe sometimes 4 games, then you're like, okay, well, there's something to this then.
I will just say this on this Jared Goff versus Trevor Siemian debate. Jared Goff is currently the number 1 QB in fantasy scoring, but he's had an extra game. He's obviously had 3 games after last night.
Well, what was he last week?
And he only has scored 2 points more than Siemian. So obviously Siemian, granted, very small sample size, he's outscoring Goff significantly.
Yeah, I mean,
those four touchdowns, no question.
Yeah, and again, it's fantasy. So in fantasy, Siemian definitely at this point in their careers, it's a worthy debate, and we need more time to figure it out. Well, and like you said, this is a little bit, even though it's the Bills, it is the toughest game that he's going to play so far, because the Bills are playing good defense, and it is a road game. So if you can go out there and throw for 3 touchdowns and have a big game again, then I'll even say, all right, maybe watch out for the Broncos this year, because that was their only weakness. So, all right. Meanwhile, I decided I had enough, even though it's only been a couple of weeks, of Thomas Rawls. And I think probably it was a combination of Chris Carson, Jamal, and the fact that Seattle's offensive line is so bad that I think the way Seattle's looking is, well, look, we can't block anybody. Russell Wilson's running for his life. if we're going to run the ball, the only way we're going to be able to run the ball is we have a guy that has a little quickness. Because somebody like Thomas Rawls that needs a little bit more of some holes because he's more physical, he's just not going to have any holes to run this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's time to, I definitely would drop Rawls at this point. Carson, obviously, a must pick up, one of those must pick up guys. I'm sure he's gone in all leagues by now. At least last week he was a must pick up. But it's not like I really trust Carson either. Obviously the Seattle running game in general, the offensive line you mentioned, but also, just too many guys in the mix that, could resurface. Carson's a rookie. We don't really know what you have in him. I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. I'd have him just in case, and if you have to start him week by week, that's cool, but I wouldn't be comfortable with that.
All right. And any reason? I mean, I know you're still a big believer in Eddie Lacy, Dan.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah. I just you rendered me speechless.
Oh, okay. So I'll have to remember this one.
Yeah.
So Eddie Lacy does the trick.
Eddie Lacy is not worth holding.
No.
In anything short of a 16-team league.
I remember. I wish I could remember that running back on UCLA. There was this running back on UCLA that came out the same year that Eddie Lacy did, and he was on the I remember what team he was on. Anyway, he was a really good breakout guy. Big play threat for UCLA, and he came out. And I was doing the shows with Neil Hornsby from Pro Football Focus, and Lacy had a good week or two, I think those first week or two. And you know what? He might have actually been on the Packers. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think he was the backup for the Packers. They had drafted Lacy and this running back from UCLA. And so we had this debate, and I said, you know what? I'll tell you right now, even though Lacy had that great start, I tell you right now, I think this guy's going to have a better career than Eddie Lacy, because I did not believe at all in Eddie Lacy. And then this guy winds up starting in the game, and he has this great game. He has 100-something yards, and then in the fourth quarter, he injures his knee, and he's never played again. So I can't remember his name.
Feel good story.
Yeah, I know. I jinxed him. But it stinks too, because all he had to do was stay healthy. He would have been better than Eddie Lacy. I would have felt like a genius. But I got to remember that guy's name. I will. I'll get him next week. But anyway, as far as I tell you what, let's go into players that we actually thought were going to be good, and haven't been good or have struggled. And we talked about one of them in Russell Wilson. How about that combination in Dallas, Jamal, with Prescott and Elliott? Prescott isn't getting the support from Elliott that he got last year. The Dallas Cowboys, I don't care what anybody says, are no longer do have the best offensive line in football, because you can't have the best offensive line in football when you have two terrible linemen right now on the team. Collins can't play tackle, and Green is awful. So there's offensive line questions. You got the Elliott nonsense, and you have Des Bryant and 50-year-old Jason Witten. So Terrence Williams is Jerry Jones needs his head examined paying that guy any money. So I guess maybe not the biggest surprise that Prescott is struggling a little bit. And I know that a lot of people look at Prescott as a starter. But Elliott, is that even more surprising? Do you expect him to rebound?
No, I expect him to rebound. Obviously they're having offensive line problems. It's not the same line they had, so I agree with you there. But Elliott had a monster game week 1 against the Giants. You got to give Denver some credit. That's a good defensive team. They basically shut down Dallas. So I think Elliott will have better days. Elliott and Prescott have much better days against this week against Arizona, or moving forward. They just you don't want to see that Denver team, and I don't think a lot of teams want to see them. When they are clicking on all cylinders on defense, that's a pretty scary defensive squad. So I'm going to chalk it mostly up to who they played last week.
Okay.
I'm still a believer in Prescott. I do think Des Bryant I might have been a little too high on him. I drafted him very high in a couple leagues. He is starting to show me he might. I mean, he's a very good receiver. I'm not sure how elite he is. He just doesn't. I see him, missing passes he should catch. He's still capable of putting up numbers. But I am starting to get a little down on him. But Elliott, I think, will be fine.
Okay.
I think he'll rebound.
Dan, I know that. Well, first of all, what do you think? Do you think that Elliott and/or Prescott will be just fine?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Prescott has been fine. Prescott scored 20 points in the first two games, so that's basically what his projections were. So there's nothing wrong with him. Zeke was obviously disappointing last week, but I don't. If there's someone who wants to sell Ezekiel Elliott, I would say buy. And I'm also more bullish on Dez. I mean, I think Dez is still. I mean, look, is he Antonio Brown or Julio Jones or Mike Evans? No, he's not in that top tier, but he's 1A, and he gets as many red zone looks as any of them. And if he stays on the field, I think he'll be. I mean, he was super productive last week. He scored like 20 points in spite of the loss. So I wouldn't worry. Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams, that's a different story. And I wouldn't count on that kind of production out of Jason Witten from week to week either.
Well, look, if Jason Witten doesn't get that sort of production, then Prescott's in even more trouble because he's going to have to find somebody. Because all right, maybe Beasley can play like he did last year, but Terrence Williams is terrible. By the way, if I had two players to go up and one to go down in stock, I would actually go up Prescott and Bryant only because of the fact of what you kind of alluded to with the stats. Because Prescott was, 30 of 50 last week?
Right.
And that's because they couldn't run, and they were getting nothing out of the running game. So I actually tend to think that I really believe that what's going on with Elliott is not going to change overnight. I just don't. Now, maybe by midseason, maybe by the end of the season, they'll get it corrected. But I just think this is not a coincidence of what's going on here with everything that's happened to him in the offseason. And then the slow start, and now he's not tackling anybody after interceptions, and he's looking like, oh, poor me. And he has his coach have to explain why he's not hustling. These things don't turn around on a dime, Jamal. So look, I understand you'd want to trade and say, hey, you know what, buy low, and if Elliott's going to be on the table, pick him up. I would talk, but I wouldn't give up the value of Ezekiel Elliott that you normally have.
No, I hear you. I mean, it's possible. It's possible it could be something bigger, but we got to wait and see. So in that sense, that this is a big game. We'll see. We'll see what happens against Arizona, who's a solid defense.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
So we'll this will be a big
Good
week
test.
for Dallas,
Good
and
test.
especially Dallas fans.
Yep. Big test.
I don't understand what we're talking about here. I mean, you had a bad game against maybe the best defense in the NFL on the road. Week 1 against the Giants, he was over 100 yards. And that was after dealing with all of this.
How many points did he have the first week?
21. He had 104 yards rushing. And the Giants
the Giants are no slouch either.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
this is what I'm saying.
That's in but that's in what? That's per carry leagues, touches, points.
No. Just because did he get in the end zone week 1?
Yeah.
Well,
you got that in front of you.
If you only have 120 yards, you can't have 20 without having a touchdown. And
in week 1, Zeke had 104 yards. 5 receptions for 36 yards, no touchdowns. But in PPR,
receptions, PPR, which mostly.
So in those leagues, yeah. So if you're not in any of those leagues and you're just in, then you got 13 points. But anyway, So look, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that I wouldn't talk about it. I'm just not giving him equal value right now. Like I said, I don't think this is just. See, you're going to go with it's Denver. I'm going with what's happened for 3 months. That's what I'm going with. If none of this distraction stuff happened for 3 months and this happened last week, I'd be right with you. I'd go, yeah, it's just Denver. Don't worry about it.
But I think the biggest reason, if let's say he has, this is a trend and he's fallen off and the Denver thing was just a blip. The biggest reason for it is not all the stuff they're talking about, but it's the fact that he was in that ESPN body issue, and that was disgusting.
that was pretty bad too, huh?
That was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I can't get that out of my head. Actually.
I would good, because I wouldn't want to look at it because it might be in my head too. So yeah. Anyway, we'll see though. Hey, like you said, Jamal, big test, because Arizona does have a good defense, and it's on the road, and there's a lot of things going on there about what took place at Denver. So if he has a really good game, and Dallas, because Dallas should beat Arizona, they should. They're a better team than Arizona. So if they lose this game and Elliott has 80 yards and 30 through the air and maybe even scores a touchdown, that's not Ezekiel Elliott as we know. I mean, Dallas better win this game, and he better come up with a halfway decent, even better. I want a better performance than the Giants, because the Giants have a better defense than Arizona's. So, but we'll see what happens. And because you don't know, do you guys, anybody have Elliott here?
Nope.
No? Prescott? No?
I have Prescott as a backup QB.
In this league or in another league?
Good question. It could be this league. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me.
Let's see. Matt Ryan. And yes, you have Prescott in this league. Now,
Okay.
You've got a situation, Dan, where you had to deal with Odell Beckham, and you still are dealing with Odell Beckham. But now you're also dealing with Melvin Gordon. I had Melvin Gordon last year in my fantasy league, my other league. And of course, that was awesome until he got hurt at the wrong time of year. But Melvin Gordon is off to a very slow start, and you look at that offensive line, and I didn't think the offensive line could get any worse, but it's worse, and it's worse because they were counting on a couple of rookies. One hasn't really responded, the other's out for the year, and guys that are potentially not even going to play this week with injury stink, which means if they stink and they're hurt, then I don't even want to know who's on the bench that have to come in and play for these guys. So is this something for you to worry about with Melvin Gordon? And now he's also banged up a little, which he tends to be.
I mean, I think, Greg, you're falling into that trap of real football judgment. And what you see with your eyes on the field, Melvin Gordon might not look like an elite running back. But he's given me 20 points each week of the first 2 weeks of the season thanks to his pass catching and a touchdown last week. So, yes, he is on the injury report, but I'm not overly concerned. I think he'll play. He definitely is the lead back, and I'm happy with the returns I've gotten on Melvin Gordon.
Well, shouldn't he be giving you 40 points then?
What's that?
Shouldn't he be giving you 40 points then?
40 points a week?
Well, you just said 20, and he hasn't even rushed for more than 70 yards in 2 games.
He's gotten me 20 points each week.
That's what I'm saying. So if he's only rushed for 70 yards on the season, shouldn't you then be expecting 40 or 30?
Well, that'd be nice.
Well, that's what you should be expecting. Not be nice. That should be what you were expecting. Shouldn't it be?
No, I don't think so.
Really? I mean, really, educate me. I don't know. I mean, there's just things. I've never been in this league and these rules. So why? So you really, it's not that big of a difference to have 70 yards after 2 weeks as opposed to what he should have, which is like 200.
Here's the important thing, Greg. Here's the big distinction, and because, like Jamal said, most of these leagues are PPR leagues
Sure.
these days.
Mm-hmm.
The PPR is what separates real football from fantasy football. In other words, like a guy who might seem like they're sucking on the field can actually be doing great in fantasy if you're in a PPR league, and that's the case with Gordon because in week 1 he had 5 receptions, and in week 2 he had 7 receptions. So you add that plus a touchdown plus whatever, 50 yards, which doesn't seem like much. I mean, obviously only went to 13 yards last week, but still last week he had the touchdown, he had the 7 receptions. So, all that matters is if he's scoring points for you consistently. It doesn't really matter how they're coming. obviously receptions aren't a sexy stat in real life, but yeah, I mean Melvin Gordon is.
I don't know. I think that's also. I mean, even in real life, if you're a part of the entire game, you're getting receptions, you're getting reception yards. I think it shows. He's doing other things. He may not. He's making up for the fact that he's not getting all those rushing yards. And may not be his own fault, like you said. It's the could be the offensive line, but he's making up for it in other ways. He's a part of the passing game. He's getting yards and receptions.
And he's the second leading scorer on my team. After Drew Brees, he's outscoring Odell Beckham, but DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce. No one else has as many fantasy points. So I'm happy with what Gordon is getting.
Where did you pick him?
Probably in the second round on it. Yeah, Odell first round, Melvin Gordon second round.
How many touchdowns does he have on the season? Just one?
One.
Okay.
Sorry, two. One receiving, one rushing.
All right, 2 weeks, two touchdowns. Not too bad.
He's got 40 points in 2 weeks. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I couldn't ask for more. The only thing that's
yes, you could have. He could be rushing for 120 yards a game, and you at least be getting what, another 7 points?
Well, if he was rushing for 120 yards, then he probably wouldn't be catching the ball. So it's like 6 of one, half dozen.
What would you prefer then? Is it better than to so you definitely want and prefer a running back, even if he's half the talent of the real running back, to be able to even if he rushes for 40 yards a game, if he's catching 5 for 40 and he's got 1 touchdown combined, or either way, you'd rather have that guy than have a workhorse one-dimensional running back.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably,
a guy who fits that description is Tariq Cohen. He's a guy that you probably should start in leagues now. He's probably getting I think he's averaging about 7 to 10 carries a game, not getting many yards, but he's like getting 8 receptions, 50, 60 yards and coming up with a touchdown. So yeah, you might be right with that. Do you want a workhorse getting you the 120 yards on the ground, and if he's not doing anything else, he's basically touchdown dependent.
Yeah, that's the thing. You definitely want to pass. All other things being equal, you want a pass catching runner, because eventually those workhorses, they're going to have bad games. They're going to have 60, 70 yard games without a touchdown.
Okay.
They're scoring nothing for you. But 10 receptions is the same as 100 yards. So the receptions come whether the team is producing or not. So it's probably a safer bet to have a guy, that's why a guy like Christian McCaffrey is so much more valued than Jonathan Stewart. Even Jonathan Stewart is getting more carries.
All right. More injuries down the road. This goes on every week. And we have Olsen now out for the year for Carolina. Don't you always it's a kiss of death with these guys who are unhappy with their contracts, and then of course you know what's going to happen. So Olsen, who may not now see the payday, that one last payday he was looking for, he's out. Boy, that Carolina situation, Jamal, just does not look good right now, with Cam Newton being still kind of under 100%, not in tune with his offense. Olsen's out for the year. Benjamin always gets banged up every week. It's just wow. And they're 2-0, but for fantasy reasons, it's not looking good right now.
No, I mean fantasy-wise, they've been a big letdown. Cam, not only banged up, but I mean he's playing and looking extremely rusty. It's showing up, on your fantasy team. The smart players probably benched him. At least last week after they saw his week 1 performance, or if they didn't bench him, they wish they did. Against the Bills, he didn't do much. It's trickled down to Benjamin. Benjamin, I think he had 1 catch in week 1. He did do a lot better week 2. I think he had about 6 catches for 70.
Yeah, he was better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plus yards. So that's a good sign. The best sign right now for Carolina is that they played New Orleans week 3. New Orleans, the worst passing defense, probably one of the worst defenses in general. So if there's a time that you think these Carolina Panthers can break out of the funk, it should be this week. So I would play Cam this week. I would look for big things from Benjamin and McCaffrey this week, and maybe even Stewart gets in the end zone.
Well, here. How about this? Okay, I'm looking at our league, and right now, Butter Pecan Recons has decided to start Cam Newton over Matthew Stafford, and I'm telling you, no way would I do that. I don't care about the matchup. I'm not doing it. I'm starting Stafford.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Butter Pecan Ricans, that's actually Mrs. Black Italics, Jamal's wife there. She probably hasn't checked her lineup yet.
Probably not.
But
that's possible. That's surely possible. I think she makes last-minute decisions.
Yeah.
Cam has a great matchup against New Orleans. They're like basically the worst defense ever. But he has really, even though their team is 2-0,
and even though they're going to lose on Sunday,
to New Orleans,
yes, they will
that
lose.
Would be an upset.
All right.
Oh, will be.
By 6.
But they will lose.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. I like the Panthers, but I do think it'll be a close game. But either way, if I had Matt Ryan, of course, I would start Matt Ryan. Okay.
No, but
Matthew Stafford.
Is it Matt Ryan? No, it's Stafford, right?
Stafford. Oh, I'm sorry. I would start.
No, I think I think that's a question. I don't know who I would start. Like just off the top, that's the first I'm thinking about it. But I'm not. I don't know. I might go Cam in that matchup. I'm not sure.
Matthew Stafford's leading the league in touchdowns. Cam has thrown 1 and just lost his best.
But he's playing New Orleans.
All right, fine. But I'll take Matthew Stafford at home.
Okay, so there you go.
But
2 for Stafford,
Cam,
1 for Newton.
With Cam, you're hoping and betting. Oh, bad defense. Maybe he'll finally start playing well because he sucked the first 2 weeks. With Matthew Stafford, all you're saying is keep doing what you've been doing, bro.
I mean, he does have the tougher matchup, Stafford, without question. Atlanta's good. But, yeah, I mean, I have Stafford in my only other fantasy league, so I'm pretty damn happy about his performance this season. But, yeah, I mean, that's why, because we don't know. I mean, Newton's also dealing with the injury situation. So how do we know he goes out there for 2 plays, he gets hurt, and he's out? We don't know. So why take that chance when you have Matthew Stafford in our league should not be a backup. I mean, that is a great bargaining chip that she has to trade. If someone needs a quarterback, she's probably, that would be the top of the list for anybody looking for quarterbacks in our league, wouldn't it be, as far as bench players?
Yeah,
bench quarterbacks?
Gotta be close. I mean, and he's getting better. Like, people had questions about him coming in. I think he's turned himself into a legit, upper echelon quarterback.
What did you say, Dan?
Well, first of all, Matthew Stafford has been an elite quarterback already.
I don't know about elite.
This is a guy who's thrown for over 5,000 yards.
I mean,
there's only a handful of guys in that history.
He had what's his name?
Wait, elite fantasy?
Yeah, he's been. I mean, every year of his career that he hasn't been injured, which is 1 year, he's been in the top 10.
Yeah, he has.
So he might not be in the top 3 or 4, but Matthew Stafford is legit and has been for a long time. Cam is the guy. She can't get rid of Stafford because that's her starter.
That's
it's
true.
Cam that she's telling you to get rid of.
She should trade Newton. That's what she should do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Trade Newton. If anybody wants to pick him up now, which they wouldn't. So, okay. Let's move on, and let's other injuries. And look, I have Gronk in my other fantasy league, so obviously I wasn't happy to hear about the injury. I knew I was taking a chance. And any time you draft Gronk in your fantasy league, you're taking a chance. Look, it sounds like from what he's saying he'll be fine. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And also Jimmy Graham has been banged up. But overall, that is something to keep an eye on with Gronk, Jamal. Because not just, if you look at the Patriots, Gronk, Edelman's out for the year. Amendola's been banged up. And they have a few other receivers that are banged up as well. So it's not a very healthy skill situation there for Brady.
Yeah, but
even Hogan's banged up.
Yeah, Belichick gets guys off the street. Takes them 2 weeks, and next thing you know, they're all pros. So,
what about Dorsett? What about Dorsett then?
I actually like. But he was banged up too. Last I checked, but I like the pickup when they did it. He had talent, and what was it? He came from the Colts, I think.
Yeah. Would you pick him up in off the waiver wire?
I would. I think that's a shrewd pickup, because I think he is, in the next couple of weeks he probably will produce. And didn't he have a solid game week two?
Yeah, he had like what, 5 and 60 or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, and he just got there. So I mean, it's only going to get better. I think that is a pickup that I might go after this show and just hop on and see where
I just
if
did
he's available.
it. I just picked him up. I have to get him before you. No, that's all right. Okay. Now, what about DeMarco Murray, Dan? DeMarco Murray. Now, what happens if they say that? Let's say you have both running backs, Dan, and they say before game time DeMarco Murray will play. Who would you play if you had to choose one? Murray or Henry?
I wish they would just say that Murray wasn't playing, and then obviously Henry becomes a RB1. It's tough to say because I have Derrick Henry in 2 leagues, and I don't have DeMarco Murray in any leagues. But I just knew Henry's an elite talent, and DeMarco Murray, even though last year he was great, up until then he's had a lot of ups and downs in his career, history of injury. So I just felt like it was a good investment, and I wouldn't really be crazy about starting either guy because, if I knew for a fact that DeMarco Murray was healthy, I would start him. But maybe he's suiting up, but he's only going to get, a handful of snaps. So I'm really dying to hear that he's not playing so that I know I can start Henry. Otherwise, I mean, probably if you have DeMarco, if he's playing, you probably have to start him. But if you have a good alternative, you might want to wait one more week to see how this drama pans out.
Okay. And I mean, I feel sorry for anybody that was feeling pretty good over the last couple of weeks about, hey, you know what? From where I was able to get West and Allen in Baltimore's backfield, I got to feel pretty good about where I got these guys. And then Marshall Yanda goes and gets injured and he's out for the year, Jamal. So that is going to affect these guys at some point. And they've already, of course, lost Woodhead, even though he'll be back. But wow, that is something that's a huge blow for Baltimore, and it could very well affect that running game.
Yeah, and it looks like Javorius Allen is the guy out of those two that you probably want, a little more versatile. But I mean, whatever you get with those guys is probably icing on the cake anyway. You probably got them late in the draft, so I'm not going to feel too bad if their production diminishes.
Would you try to sneak by a trade and go, hey, look at how Allen's playing right now? I'll trade you. Would you do that?
Yeah, why not? But it's a tough situation because you might be relying on him now. So you have to. You're taking a chance with that. What are you going to get for him?
Yeah.
That's the question too.
All right, and Rob Kelly's out this week, Dan. So we got Thompson making big plays. We got Perrine going out there and putting up some numbers and better fantasy numbers than actual numbers, but still, he's going to be the number one guy. And this is a really good opportunity for him too. He's had a slow start with camp. They're saying his indecision and running in the right holes and behind, the right, on the right play formations. It's just been a little bit slow for him, which happens with rookies. And that's why maybe he didn't look as good as the other two guys last week, but this is still a big opportunity for him because we know Rob Kelly is no flashy kind of guy. And if he's out for a few weeks, maybe that's all Perrine needs. So Perrine's a guy that definitely is picked up in every league, right?
He hasn't been. I picked him up in a couple leagues, but do we know, is that confirmed that Rob Kelly is out?
I saw something that said he was out, but you have to double check.
He got knocked out of last week's game, but last I heard he was planning to wear some sort of, he's got a bruised rib or something. He's going to wear a protective jacket, and plans to play, but I don't think it's officially been called yet. If Rob Kelly doesn't play, then yeah, this is.
Who would you go with? Which running back do you like better than in that spot?
I mean, I would definitely go with Samaji because Chris Thompson is, he's not going to have those kinds of numbers week in, week out. He's never going to carry the ball in first or second down. Jay Gruden's come out and said that this week, that, he's kind of a smaller guy and they have to kind of protect him a little bit. Plus, they use him in the return game. So, if Kelly's not playing, then I definitely like Samaje Perine. If Kelly is playing, then I would start Thompson over all three of them, because he's the one that no matter what, he's getting that third down work.
Do you agree, Jamal?
Yeah, I actually go Perine first, even if they're both playing. I think he got a lot of carries last week. I think he's the next guy. He's the rookie. He had a strong college career. I think they're going to give him a chance. He was very raw. You could tell in the first week. I think he only gets better. You're talking about a rib injury for Kelly. I mean, that can't feel good. He takes one more hit, and I don't know how long you can last as a running back with a rib injury in the NFL. So, I'm not, even if Kelly played, I don't see him getting a bunch of carries.
Yeah, he's not Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, if you're the Redskins, if you're Gruden, you shouldn't be playing him. I mean, the guy's a physical back. That's all he does. So
and you know who they're playing this week?
Oh, the Raiders.
The Raiders. So hello, Khalil Mack. I think a couple of those shots, he's not going to want to stay in that game very long.
That's also an issue with the Raiders, because that'll be the Raiders are going to put points on the board. So how many times will they actually be running the ball too? That's the question.
Who would you take right now, Jamal? John Brown or J.J. Nelson?
I guess right now you got to go J.J. Nelson. John Brown, I think, is he playing this week?
No, I don't think so.
I know he's had injury issues. I think a couple of weeks ago, if you would asked me that, I would have went Brown. But with the injury issues, you got to go Nelson.
Do you agree?
Yeah, no question. J.J. Nelson scored I think 7 touchdowns in his last 8 games going back to last season.
Okay.
And John Brown, look, when he's on the field, he's good, but he's got the sickle cell trait he's dealing with. He's had all kinds of injuries throughout his career, so he's not really a safe bet at this point.
All right. Talk about players to add this week. Give me a couple of players, Jamal, who you would add this week, or at the top of your list of players that we did not talk about.
Well, definitely Perine, I think he's a must-add at this point. I think Dixon, the tight end, Ed Dixon from Carolina, due to Olsen's injury. Cam, we already talked about how rusty he is. Even when he's not rusty, he likes to lean on the tight ends. I think Dixon's going to get a lot of chances, even though he hasn't really proven he's a tight end one ever really, but he'll get his chance, I believe, this week. You got Rashad Higgins, I think, is a must-add wide receiver in Cleveland. Trevor Siemian should probably be off the waiver wire by now.
Okay,
we talked about him.
Dan, who would you give me a couple guys we didn't talk about?
I think Jack Doyle. A lot of people gave up on him after week 1, and something really great that we saw for him last week is that he's going to get leaned on by Jacoby Brissett. So he's going to get numbers now, and then when Luck comes back, he'll get even more numbers.
Okay.
So I like him. I like both of the receivers, Marquise Lee and Alan Hearns down in Jacksonville. I just think as much as they want to run the ball, they're going to be playing from behind, and they're going to have to throw the ball. Marquise Lee had something like 13, 14 targets last week. So, and then I think Jalen Richard showed some of that explosiveness he showed at the end of last season. And I mean, look, I love having beast mode in the NFL, but he's an older guy, plays really physically. It's not really out of the realm of possibility to assume that Marshawn is going to go down, and I think Jalen Richard is going to be the guy to step up when he does.
All right. Well, I'm glad I picked him up in our league then. Yeah, that was a no-brainer with me that I had Lynch because I had Richard last year. I picked him up I think I might have picked him up right around the time I lost Gordon. So I needed somebody. He's he's got the potential that if they actually would need him to be like the number one guy, that he would be an instant starter on that team. I mean, we saw with Patterson last week, and we've talked about him and his playmaking ability, and Crabtree, and Cooper, and Carr, and the offensive line, and even though it's going to be spread around, sometimes it's actually a good thing because that means nobody's paying attention to you, and that opens things up for you. And then you only have to try to elude guys like bust a screen, and that's usually a recipe for success, as Jamal and I know. Okay, so I'll go ahead and throw in Jermaine Kearse. I think Kearse is a guy because he's clearly now the number one guy with the Jets, and they'll probably be throwing the ball a lot at the end of games, like what happened with Kearse's touchdown last week. And I also think, you know what, we talked about this guy. I think maybe it is time to give Brandon Coleman a shot. It wasn't just the one touchdown. He contributed with like 6 for 80. He's got Drew Brees. I don't really care about too much with Snead coming back, Jamal, and I think that's part of the reason, as I just said. I said sometimes it's better when you have more around you, because if Snead comes back, it's not the same position. Snead is going to play a completely different role than Brandon Coleman. Brandon Coleman is going to be a guy that you would hope Drew Brees would want to lean on in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, Coleman's one of those guys who I've been unsure of, been kind of afraid to pick him up, on the free agent wire. But I basically agree with what you're saying. I think, obviously you established some sort of chemistry with Brees, which, nothing is better than that. So if Brees trusts him and has given him 8 targets, I think 6 catches last week. Obviously that Brees is going to do nothing but throw the ball. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth a pickup.
Yeah, I mean, I would love the luxury of getting a second consecutive week to find out but if Brandon Coleman has a big week this week, everybody will pick him up.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah. So I think you have to sometimes look. It all depends. I wouldn't pick him up and give up a good player that I have a little bit more faith and consistency with. But if you're in that spot where you have I got kind of like a free pickup, then I think he's worth that chance, that risk that we all take every couple of weeks when we have those kind of free pickups. And we say, okay, I got a crappy guy on my team. I'm ready to get rid of him. Or a kicker I use for a week or whatever. So let me go ahead and I'll roll the dice on a guy. And, usually it doesn't work out statistically, but that's sometimes it does. What about Kendall Wright, Dan, now that he's probably at this point the number one receiver for the Bears?
I mean, I wouldn't feel great about starting. I actually own him in one league. He's like one of these volume plays. It's like what people were saying about Robbie Anderson at the beginning of the season, where it was like, well, they got to throw to somebody.
Yeah.
And he did get a lot of targets last week, but I've done this dance before with Kendall Wright. He's got a somewhat limited ceiling. And certainly if you're in a deep PPR league and, you lost a couple guys, you need a spot start, Kendall Wright's definitely worth throwing in there. But in the long term, I don't think you're winning any leagues with him as a week-to-week starter. So you might look more towards some sort of long-term investment. Somebody like, Zay Jones or even the rookie on the Bears, because by the end of the season, like I said, you're not going to be winning your league starting Kendall Wright. So if you don't need him immediately, you might look more long-term.
Yeah, I mean, Kendall is just a guy that really hasn't been able to stay healthy. He was supposed to be the star number one at Tennessee for a few years, but then the injuries and then just they gave up on him. And he's getting a chance. So he couldn't be asking for – this is his last chance, because if he can't figure out a way to be number one of the Bears this year, he's done. So what about guys to give up on, Jamal? Give me a player or two that you think you should – you know what? Yeah, I was kind of wondering about him when the season began, and I've already now seen enough after 2 weeks that I think even though he's had a pretty good career or – a good year last year, I'm going to drop him.
I'm more of a patient person, so there are guys I saw who I think Dan is going to talk about that I would probably hold on to for a couple more weeks. But I mean, we talked about Rawls and Lacey. Obviously, get rid of them. Carson Palmer, if you had him as a backup, I would go young and get like
Deshaun Watson. Well, if you were going to
Yeah.
say going young, but yeah, you would go Goff before Watson, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would go Goff before Watson, no question. But even Watson, I would rather probably have than Palmer. And like a guy like Mike Wallace, has that name. You've heard of him before. You might have drafted him at the end of the round, at the end late rounds, thinking he might do something for Baltimore.
And by the way, what's up with Macklin?
Not gonna happen.
What's up with Macklin?
I mean, I know he had the big week 1 perform, or at least a touchdown in week 1, a long touchdown. I don't know what he
got hurt.
I know he didn't do much week 2, right?
He got hurt, right, Dan? Macklin?
Yeah, I mean, I think he got a little nicked up, but he's fine. He's not on the injury report for this week. He scored 13 points week 1, 13 points week 2. Week 2 he had
that's not bad.
4 receptions and a touchdown. So he got a touchdown each of the first 2 weeks. So
okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's got to stay healthy, and as long as he stays healthy, he's going to probably be the number 1 guy for
as
Flacco.
He should be.
As he should be, yes. Okay, so you actually believe, Dan, that it's time to move on. Now, I'm not surprised about Paul Perkins, but you think it's also time to move on. And I'm actually not surprised about Brandon Marshall. Me and Jamal know what Brandon Marshall can not do for you. But LeGarrette Blount.
And Dan, too. He's a Jets fan.
Okay, Dan, I didn't realize you were also a morning Jet fan, and I don't mean Morning.
I knew what you meant, trust me. LeGarrette Blount, I think he had like 1 carry, or did he have 0 carries?
Yeah, what was going on there? What do we know about why they're not running him in Philly?
I mean, they were playing.
We don't know anything. It was pretty weird.
They were playing from behind, but to see a guy who scored a touchdown last week not get a carry is definitely disconcerting and worthy of a drop. If you're in a shallow league, you shouldn't drop any of these guys just to drop them. You shouldn't drop LeGarrette Blount to pick up Marlon Mack, unless maybe you own Frank Gore. But the point is, just you shouldn't consider them untouchable. Like, if there's someone out there, whether it's a Samaje Perine or Marquise Lee, one of these guys that we talked about, Chris Carson, Jalen Richard, that are on the rise, like, you can wait and see what happens with Brandon Marshall, but chances are, or with LeGarrette Blount, chances are they're going to suck this week too, and then next week you're going to go try to pick up those guys that are going to be gone because someone else grabbed them. So, like you were saying, Greg, sometimes you have to kind of, put on your big boy pants and take a chance and grab someone, because if you don't, someone else will.
All right, so then would you right now, same question I asked with another player then, Dan, would you, well, maybe I would know from Dan because you're dropping Blount here in this scenario, but so Jamal, would you rather have Blount or Sproles?
Sproles. I think you got to go. I mean, Sproles, he's still involved. Like you said, he gets the catches in the PPR league.
Was he drafted ahead of Blount in our league, do you think, or no? Probably not, right? Or was he? Again,
no, Sproles was mostly undrafted or went very late. People mainly scared away because he's like older than dirt and he has had some injuries and he's small. But going into the season, there was a lot of rumbling about how dissatisfied the Eagles staff was with Blount and that Sproles might be the lead guy. And in the first 2 weeks, not only is he the receiving running back, he's basically the lead running back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I would definitely start or own or trade anything. If I have a choice between Sproles and Blount, I'm taking Sproles 10 times out of 10.
All right, and all 3 of those players will be playing in the same game, by the way, when the Eagles take on the Giants on Sunday. Give me one player, position, player, whatever, Jamal, who you think, if you had to just get one player to have a really good week this week? Any position, any team, anything. Kicker.
I'll go with I'm gonna stick to the Carolina Panthers, and I'll go Kelvin Benjamin, which at the same time I guess means Cam.
Really?
I think they'll put it together, and I'm telling you, it's this New Orleans. I think anybody can score against New Orleans.
I hope you're right.
And I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I like Cam and Kelvin to hook up a couple times.
And you have Kelvin as well in a league or two, or was that last year, Dan?
I don't have. I was eyeing him, but the word got out of him too early. He started draft and end up in many leagues.
Okay.
I like him, Kelvin Benjamin. I'm a fan of the Panthers.
I'll trade him to you if you want him.
All right, Kelvin Benjamin for Delaney Walker. Let's get it going.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but we can think about another player. Because I'm actually very happy with Evan Ingram. I just don't like the fact that he's questionable this week. That's all. But hey, you know what? Thanks to your tip, if when it comes to 12:50 on Sunday, if he's still available, I don't know if he will be. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind in a few hours and take the chance. I got to take a look if there's a guy that I really want to dump just for a week. But maybe I would pick up Jack Doyle. So
yeah, I mean, he might not be available, but there are definitely other streaming options out there. You got a lot. Jared Cook is available in a lot of leagues. He's been pretty productive for Oakland. They're playing Redskins, who are not a good defense. You have Austin Seferian-Jenkins coming off his suspension. He looked good in the preseason. As you mentioned, Jets don't have a lot of targets. So, what does a quarterback do when he doesn't have good receivers? Dump it off to the tight end. So there are definitely some streaming options you could go for.
Have you ever both Jamal first, as far as when you're in a situation, because I've done this, I think, out of all the years I've played, I think I've done this maybe once. I might have done it twice, where I just felt I had so many decent players as backups. I was not willing to drop my kicker that week or that defense that week to pick up, or not drop that defense or kicker, but drop another player just to get 1 week kicker or defense.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it. It's rare for me, but if I have a good defense kicker.
No, I mean, if you have as far as the depth, have you ever been in a situation where you have so much good depth on your team with no backup kicker or defense, and the week comes up where your kicker or defense has to be off? Have you ever just said, I'm getting 0 points?
No, I never did that. I would probably drop the defense and pick up another defense and say forget it.
Even if your defense was the best defense in the league?
I've probably never been in that situation. Like if I had Denver, I'd probably drop a player.
I have held 2 defenses before.
Okay.
For 1 week. If I have a defense that's just been killing it and scoring double digits for me week in, week out, they go on a bye, I'm going to drop the last player on my bench, stream a defense, and then go back to my original defense the next week. I don't love holding it, but for 1 week, I would do it for a kicker too if the kicker was in the top 2 or 3 for the league.
If he was the top 2 or 3 for the league, you would drop him?
No, I'm saying
drop.
Even
if you have a deep league, a deep bench, you would drop the worst guy.
No matter. Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I would drop the worst position player and have 2 for that 1
Yeah,
week.
again, it's not like I've done it maybe more than once, but I think it's something that you have to really like your bench players in order to go through that, I guess. Okay, so you've got Jamal. You gave me Benjamin, say, Cam Newton. Dan, who do you think's gonna have a big week? Give me one player.
I mean, who else, guys? Smoking Jay Cutler, playing at Giants Stadium against the worst.
You got to be kidding me with Jay Cutler.
Jay Cutler.
He's gonna let you down. He lets everybody down. You know this.
What if a Giant rushes for 200 yards, which is possible?
That's true.
I like Smoking Jay to throw at least 2 touchdowns.
Okay, all right.
So far the Jets have given up, I think, 5 touchdowns in the air in 2 games. So.
Well, that was all. That was all last week.
Well, no, Tyrod Taylor scored touchdowns against them too.
Yeah, but that I don't even remember when that was a 2-yard pass.
To Clay, probably.
Yeah, it was that Clay pass because he didn't do anything.
They all count the same. In the stats.
Actually, the one play that they did hit was that play where Buster Screen missed the tackle. Yeah, that's right. We mentioned him again on the show. Okay, so anyway, I'll go with I'll go out of the loop and I'll go with the Baltimore Raven defense against Jacksonville. There's my play.
Okay.
Pick up. The Ravens have had a great start to the season. Are they like one of the top? They have to be one of the top 2 or 3 defenses, right?
I would assume so. They got to be top.
They're the number 1 scoring defense.
Number 1. Okay. So there you go. All right, and so that should pretty much wrap it up. Just last question that we'll always ask, I guess, is um, if any of you guys have any dilemmas regarding your starting this week. So Dan, what's your? I know you're always good for a dilemma as far as who to start, and who not to. So what do you got for us this week?
Yeah, well, I do, and Jamal can tell you, like, every Sunday morning, I'm like texting him like about 15, this guy or that guy. But this week, my biggest concerns are, I'll give you this one. I got Martavis Bryant at Chicago, T.Y. Hilton. They're hosting the Browns, and Tyrell Williams. Chargers are hosting KC. Who do you guys like?
Oh, that's easy.
It is.
Who you got?
You don't think that's easy, Jamal?
I sort of do.
Well, then go ahead and tell me who you got.
I don't remember what he did last week, but I told you this last week. I said go with Tyrell Williams. Did that work out last week?
Actually, Tyrell Williams, by the way, is he healthy? 100% healthy?
I can't say 100%, but he's not listed on the injury.
Okay.
And what did he do last week?
I gotta
not much.
Pull that up. I think he scored about 12 points. Where Brian
4 for 54,
yeah.
Which is what he did the first week. 5 for 54. Yeah. No, for me, it's easy because of the fact that you got to go with Bryant. Because of the fact that, look, Williams, he's like the 6th option right now. That doesn't mean he won't have a big game this week. It's just that he's one of those guys now with all the other options that Rivers has that you don't know when he's going to have that week. Hilton, come on. Brissett, I don't even want to talk about him. And Martavis Bryant, at least, see, Bryant, I did want to start. See, I didn't even play Bryant last week because after the first week, I said, you know what, maybe, and I had other options. And I said, I got to wait and see. He's been out for a while. I did that thing that we just talked about before. Let's just see when he has the good week, like Watkins with you, Dan. I got to see when he's going to have that first week. When he has that first week, then he's starting every week for me. So I think when you got Roethlisberger and then Bryant as your number 3 option on the team, I think that makes easy sense for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you gotta go Bryant. I basically forgot that he had a good game last week. So.
And any more, Dan?
Let's see.
Or do you have any, Jamal? You have any dilemmas, Jamal?
Yeah, it's not a sexy one, but who would you go, Forte or Duke Johnson?
PPR, right? Obviously.
Yeah, PPR. Forte. I got obviously Miami. Duke Johnson, Indianapolis.
I would go with Duke.
Yeah, you got to go with Duke after that catch last week. It's close.
I mean, Forte.
He's getting all the carries for some reason. He's getting more carries.
Which
than
you just don't
Powell.
know though if that's going to continue, because if it does, which it probably will, because Todd Bowles is a complete moron, even though he's not coaching the offense. But he's the guy in charge, and if he knew what he was doing after that game, he'd go, why are we going with Matt Forte? But I bet you Bowles probably said to play him more. You know why? Because he's a veteran, and we want the old guys to continue to play. That's probably why McCagnon took them all away from Bowles in the offseason. And now Bowles is still trying to figure out, wait, how can I start all these old guys? All right, you got rid of all the old guys, but you left me with McCown, Screen, and Forte, so they all play. And they all stink. Yeah. So I'll continue to play all the stinky old guys.
So you go. So I guess you say go Forte.
No, I mean that's a tough one though. It is, and I'm only saying it though probably for the matchup.
Right.
Because they're playing the Colts. So, and I think the Browns will beat the Colts, and he should get. Why isn't he getting more carries though? You would think with a rookie quarterback, not carries but catches. That is kind of surprising. Yeah, that is kind of surprising.
I think he's getting a decent amount of catches in the passing game. He's not getting any carries away from Crowell, but I think he's probably like the second or third leading receiver on that team.
All right.
He's involved.
All right. So yeah, for that purpose, but yeah, that's a tough one. And you would go which way, Dan?
I'm going with Duke.
Okay. And let's see. I know that I have. Let's see. How about? Because I'm not sure yet on this one myself. So I'll go. How about Curse? See, Hogan's questionable. Curse, Hogan, Ingram, I guess that's it because I can't start Charles right now. Richardson's kind
Mark
of
Ingram or Evan Ingram?
Mark Ingram. Mark
Mark
Ingram, Curse, Hogan, Paul Richardson, Torrey Smith.
Ingram.
Yeah,
Ingram?
you gotta go Ingram. Gotta go Ingram.
Even though it's at Carolina with that defense.
Yeah, but you might get a goal line touchdown or something.
Okay.
I mean, he's probably the one that gets the most touches, altogether. I would think.
I know Curse has had 2 huge weeks in a row, but I just need to see one more before I'm trusting him. It's not that I think he's good. I think he'll be good. But do I think he'll have another 25-point performance? I don't know about that. I think Ingram is certainly the more conservative. He's got the lowest floor, I think, of everybody you mentioned.
All right. So there you go. That'll do it for this week's show. And we'll be back again next Friday. By the way, we are on every Friday now at 2 Eastern. So that helps us out a lot. We enjoy that. Dan, appreciate it as always. We'll definitely be waiting for you to get that new phone connection next week. And we'll talk to you on Friday.
Can't wait.
And Jamal, I'll talk to you on Monday when we wrap up what's going on this weekend in fantasy football.
And the Jets. I'll be at the Jets game on Sunday, so I'll be at what could be another debacle.
I forgot about that. I forgot about the Jet game, the Jet show we're doing. Yeah, so we'll talk on the Jet show first, and then do some fantasy talk on the OFN on Monday night. So for Jamal Murphy and for Dan Weinrich, I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in to the Ourlads Football Radio Network. And also don't forget to follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. We'll see you next Friday right here on OFN Fantasy Football.